Oh, hey, come on in. Welcome to my kitchen. I was just thinking about making some bread. You know, I think bread is one of the first things that humans learned how to make. Maybe right behind throwing a gazelle onto an open fire. Can you hear him out there saying, this gazelle is good. It would make a really good sandwich tomorrow. All we really need is some bread, and maybe a beer. There's more bread recipes out there than any other recipe I can think of. There's thousands of them. I've got hundreds right here. I was just looking through, trying to find a recipe that I want to make today, when I realized they all have something very important in common. None of them have some of these ingredients, like stearoyl lactylate, or datum, or L-cysteine. What do you think L-cysteine really is? How about azido dicarbonamide? That doesn't really sound like something I want to eat. Heck, I can't even pronounce it. All good recipes start with 4 basic ingredients: flour, salt, water, and yeast. They're really simple to make. Even a caveman can do it. All you need is a little patience and a couple of techniques. And I'll show you some of that today. Well, not the patience maybe, but certainly the techniques. I'm going to make a nice, simple, crusty loaf, and it's really easy to make. It's simple, and it's delicious. Let's go on over and start it up. We've got our ingredients all right here. There's only 4. We have some water, some yeast, some salt, and some flour. We're starting out with 1,000 grams of unbleached bread flour. Honestly, you could use just about any kind of flour you want. After a while, if you decide you want to add a little wheat flour to this, that's great. Maybe 10% of that can be wheat flour. We've got salt, and we use kosher salt here. And yeast, our yeast is an instant yeast, regular tap water. So we're going to start out with 1,000 grams of flour, 22 grams of salt, 4 grams of yeast, and we need 720 grams of water. And here's how we're going to do that. We're going to use 2 bowls. One's got our warm water in it. We'll pour some in until we get to about 360. That's 370. Just pour it right in. Now we come back to 350, and that'll give us 720 grams. Bingo, right on those. Pour it right in. I'm going to reach in with my hand, stir it up until all the flour gets wet. So you want to try to incorporate all that water right now. This is called an autolyse. I guess that's from the French because they make good bread. And once you do that, there's going to be step 1 in patience. Just let it sit in there for 20 minutes. 15-20 minutes, let the water get absorbed into the flour. And you're going to see a big difference in that. So we're just going to put the cover right on here and walk away for 20 minutes. Okay, we've had this in for 20 minutes, right? So that was lesson 1 in your patience. The next one we're going to do is we're going to put the salt in here. Just pour it in, that's all you got to do. And the yeast right on top. Don't let anybody tell you you can't put the salt right on the yeast, because you can. Then we're going to take our hands, going to put a little bit of water on our fingertips and start to mix it up. You could do this in an electric mixer. I like doing it by hand. Honestly, it's a little more fun. If it's a little dry, you can always put more water in. If it's a little wet, you put a little more flour in. And the way we're doing this is folding it over. Take your fingers and your thumb, just pinch them together about 6 times down the length of it. Turn the bowl a little bit, flip it, pull up another end, keep going. Do that for about 10 minutes. Starts to stick to your fingers, just go back into the water, shake off the extra, and it'll stop sticking to you. This is going to take about 5 minutes, so this is lesson 2 in patience. Don't be in a hurry. You'll know when it starts to look like a really good bread dough. You'll get the feel for it after a while. try to scrape up all the little pieces from the side and get them incorporated in here. Okay, now I actually make this all right in this pot. I put it on the countertop now to show you what it really looks like in there. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm pulling up one end and I'm taking my thumb and my forefinger and I'm just kind of driving them together in here like a pincher. Spin it, do the same thing again. This is kind of a wet dough, so it's a little bit sticky. Just put some flour on the countertop. Like I said, you could do this with an electric mixer, but I'm going to make the assumption that if you're just learning how to do this, you're not up to spending $300 for a mixer right now. This, however, is about $20 at a restaurant supply store. You'll love it. You do the whole thing right in there. Keeps it off the counter, reduces the mess. So this is looking pretty good. Here comes step 2 in the patience, or step 3 actually, because mixing is step 2. We're going to put it back in the bowl another minute, and we're going to let it sit for about a half an hour. I suppose you could knead this with healing hand, like you see in the Wild West shows. If it gets a little sticky, just add a little more flour. You can do it all with one hand, so you got one hand free to answer the phone when it rings. This is starting to look like a dough now. Gets a little bit silky. Okay, that's looking good. I'm going to put it back in the bowl, put the lid on it, let it sit for another half an hour. Okay, it's been 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to take off the lid. Slap this puppy down on the countertop. Just give it a couple of folds. That's all we have to do. A little flour on it. It's a little sticky. It's a fold. You'll be able to tell when it doesn't need any more folds because you won't be able to fold it. Get it nice and tight. Doing this in the bin, just pull it over, fold it, spin it, pull it over and fold it. That's all you gotta do. Alright, back in the bin, this time for an hour. Remember, be patient, it's worth it. Okay, so it's been a half an hour. Turn this one more time. It's a little sticky. I'm going to put a little more flour on top. This is looking real good right now. Now what we've got to do is have the real patience. We're going to leave this in here for another 2 hours until it gets big and bubbly. See you then. You know, while we're waiting, let's go over a couple of techniques. First of all, always use kosher salt. Always use instant yeast. You can put the salt and the yeast in at the same time. It's just not going to matter. Don't worry about what other people have said. Secondly, be patient. We don't use a lot of yeast in this bread, so it takes a while for it to rise. We're going to let that get to about 2 times the size that it was when we first put it together. Then we're going to turn it out gently and cut it into 2 loaves, shape it up, and stick it in the oven. The next thing to remember is when you're working with the dough, put a little bit of water on your fingertips, splash it off, and then the dough won't stick to your hands. And of course, cover it when you're waiting for it to rise so it doesn't get dry. That's it. It's really very simple. All you have to do is really have some patience and it'll come together for you nicely. Alright, this has been about 2 hours now. You can see that that's about double what it was. We're going to put that on the countertop and gently pull it out. Try not to break any of the bubbles as many as we can anyway. The bubbles are where all the flavor is. Just kind of help it come out of the bowl. Put it on some floured countertop. I'm going to take a dough cutter and cut it into 2 pieces because this is enough for 2 loaves. To the side while we work on the first one. What we're going to do is a couple of freestyle loaves here. So you're going to try to fold them over on themselves so that you're pulling the skin on the outside. Roll it back towards you a little bit. Fold the ends over. You wind up with a nice tight skin on the outside. Put that on a baking sheet. Some parchment paper. We'll take the other one, roll it in on itself, gently stretch it out so that the skin gets tight on the outside. Fold the ends under and lay that up on the baking sheet. We're going to let these rest for another hour. In the meantime, we're going to turn the oven on to 450 degrees. Well, it's been about an hour now. The loaves are looking good. My oven's up to temperature. I'm going to stick them into a 450 degree oven for about 20 minutes. Okay, I can hear that timer now. To see those at about 190 degrees on the inside. Those are perfect. Here we have 2 beautiful loaves of bread. Here's the last piece of patience you need to know. Do not cut these for 1 hour. That's it. Beautiful crusty loaves.